Now, what are we building? We are building a customer AI support agent or customer support agent focused on AI. And as we can see here, we're building this in n8n. Most interesting thing is we have I don't know who owns it, but we've taken 11 Madison Park, which seems to be a very fancy restaurant where you can make your reservations. The Daniel Hum Hospitality, and okay, it's based off of this group. It has got reservation options. It's got about, it's got events, a lot of information here. We can subscribe to the newsletter. And we're going to use this as one of our websites to find out if our AI agent actually works. So the first thing we're going to do is just ask you the question. As you can see, I already asked a question here. What type of business are you? And you can see everything was working. So let's just reload this, the other document again, and ask the same question again and see what happens. And as we can see, we ask a question. The chat message is received. We ask the AI agent, and what happens is it's just local data that we have from the customer from the website, and then it gives you an answer, and it stores everything nicely in the chat in a simple memory. So that being said, let's get to building, I think, unless we have any questions. Well, we don't have any viewers, so we don't have any questions.
Uh, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you're not sharing the workflow. We
Okay,
only
Umaima,
see
thank you. You're
the.
a blessing in disguise for sharing this. So let's start over. It's great that this isn't live. So, uh, okay, so what do we have here? As you can see, we have a workflow where the workflow actually starts at this chat node. So let me just take this apart here, and we have our OpenAI model. When we ask the model, when we send a chat message, the model, the AI agent, will then take that question. It will talk to OpenAI as a base model, and it will then give us an answer back. Now, one thing that's super crucial here, since we're working with another website, we are working in a way, well, we kind of want to get that data from the website in there, right? Because how can a customer support agent answer your questions if it doesn't know who you are? So what we've done, and I'm going to quickly just stop sharing and start sharing the full window. I think that's going to be so much more easier. Let's make this in the right dimensions. As we can see, we have 11 Madison Park as the main website that we're using as an example in this case. At the same time, we can see that this AI agent is utilizing a data table. Now, if we look at this data table a bit closer, we have it here open. We can see that we have different columns. And we can see here that we have 11 Madison Park. We can see that we have a column for active, so domain, whether it's active or not, or whether we have content. So the great thing is that depending on which one we have active, the model is going to access data for this specific website and then give us an answer back with that information. So if I change 11 Madison Park and I turn it off active and I go to Banner Peak Health, for example, now if I reload and I ask the model a question that's more relatable. So for example, which doctors are on staff? It's going to fetch the data from the data table, and it's going to give you specifically everything that it has from the website. So if you go to Banner Peak Health and we go to About Us, where the members are, the doctors are, we can see that we have Lindsay Klein, we have Ari Katz, we have Wahida Hiller, we have Barry Rodman. Going back to our AI agent, we can see, boom, it's given us everything, right? They all practice personalized conscious care. So it's even giving us answers more relatable to this. So how does this work? Let's try to break it down. Again, as we've mentioned, we send a message to the model. The AI agent utilizes, in this case, OpenAI's ChatGPT model. It fetches data from our data table. It then sends the message back, and then it stores the message also in a history, so it can utilize that for other purposes. So we can ask another question. What kind of services do you provide? We can even ask, and let's assume we're super interested in this answer, but right now I'm not. So what's your phone number, right? Let's answer that. How do I contact you? Well, there's no there in the data that we have scraped, and I'm going to be honest, we only scraped two pages. it didn't contain a phone number, but let's ask another question. How can I reach you? Because we asked for a specific phone number, but what if we do this? Because I know there's a phone number on the page and it's not giving us that. Too bad. Well, we're going to see if we can fix that today. So let's get going. Let's see. Do I have everything in here? Yes, I do. Okay. Now we're going to recreate this. Let's see how we can get this done. I just showed you how this part works, like the chatting, but you can also see that this is not the only thing we have. We actually have a ton of work on top of this. So how do we get there? Now let's take, for example, let's take Banner Peak Health, and we're actually going to just simply delete this one. So we're going to completely remove it. And we're going to run another part of this, this workflow. And that's actually the data collection. So we kind of have two separate ones. And as you can see, they're connected by one simple thing, and that's the AI chat model, which we use for the website and which we also use for the connection to chat with. And later down the line, we'll figure out how that works. In here, what we do is we fill in a form. We'll get to show you the form in a second. We do a request to fetch the sitemap of the website. For this, we're actually using a third-party tool called Firecrawl to make it easy enough to turn our websites into LLM-ready data. Because websites usually are, I mean, I can show you. This is so much information. Not only is it a lot of tokens, it also contains a lot of code, a lot of stuff that's not relevant for an LLM. And what Firecrawl does, it strips everything away, and it actually only gives you the content that's relevant for your LLM, essentially, for your AI agent. This means reduce of tokens, reduce of cost, but at the same time, having more fine-grained data, so better answers. That's why you don't scrape a page just with the source. You actually use a tool like Firecrawl. And there are also open source libraries available, like Crawl for AI, for example, which I believe is actually used by Firecrawl under the hood. But this is your LLM-friendly crawler and scraper. So let's move back. We removed Banner Peak Health, and now we're going to execute this workflow. Now, this has opened up another form in another window. I'm just going to copy the URL and show you. And here I can actually fill in the URL. So let's use bannerpeakhealth.com, submit it, and we're going to go back immediately because you can see it is now fetching information. It's processed everything, processing. And now at some point, it's going to come to the LLM, to the OpenAI chat agent, or the GPT-5 model, essentially. It's currently fetching the pages. It takes a bit longer because we need to wait to make sure that in our free tier, we're not going past our limits. And now it's actually fetching, it's like taking everything together and it's combining this into a knowledge base. And from here, we're going to be able to see what happens with it. So let's take a look. As we can see here, and once we get to the nodes, things will become a lot more clear. But as you can see here, we are telling the GPT-5 model that it's an information architect. It needs to synthesize the provided web pages into concise and deduplicated encyclopedia. And it needs to do the Markdown for agents and automations. So we tell it what it needs to do. Parse and normalize facts, right? Create an overview of what the business is. What's an online summary, the primary website, contact phone number, the industry, a lot of stuff we're getting here. And obviously, you can modify this prompt towards your business, towards your client, and make sure that it is something that is working for you better. But what we can see here on the right side is that we have the result. So this result that we see here, and we see this green part, is actually the variable that we have in. And this is a variable coming from the content from Banner Peak Health. So it's taking and actually this is what we get from Firecrawl, right? So you can see it doesn't have any HTML, doesn't have any JavaScript, not even anything. It literally just has some images and it has all the content on the page. And as you can see here, this double hash essentially means it's an H2. So it even takes on your content formatting, showing what's important, what's not important. Now that we have this and we've scraped everything, the last piece of the puzzle is to insert insert it into our database. If you go to our data table, we can see here now, if I refresh, that we're going to have a third row. You can see it's not been active, it's not deactivated. And let's see what it's gotten for us. So it's telling us the business brand is Benepeak Health. It's concierge medicine practice focused on personalized, evidence-based healthcare, including vaccines and innovative therapies. There's no, as we know, there's no phone number available. And then it tells us a bit more. Like, it doesn't have the hours, the location, the pricing, and everything else. And the reason why that is we only scraped 2 pages. Just for the sake of time and efficiency, we're only scraping 2 pages. But the more we add on top of this, obviously the more it will know about this website, and the deeper the questions it can answer. Okay. So, well, I see chat is screaming with questions, so we're going to start moving. We're not going to answer those, but let's get to the point that we're actually going to build this. So let's create a new workflow in our automation templates selection. Now, just preparing everything here, as this is a live recording. Not everything is as prepared and thought out as we kind of wanted it to be. But, have a little patience. And if you're here, put a message in the chat for your boy. So it's always welcome. All right, I am ready to get going. Now, the first thing that we need for this is that we need that form submission, right? So how do you get the website? So we're going to go into n8n. We're going to select our node. That's an n8n form. Now, the beautiful thing about this is you can create a form. And in this case, the form title is going to be, let's say, fill in your website URL. Question, or watch. Let's make it a question. What's your website URL? And it will say we'll scrape your website's content to be stored in our data base, so you can talk to your data later. So you or your customers can talk to your data later. Now, the question then is, do we need anything specific? We obviously need some fields. So let's add the first field, which is the URL of the website, which is going to be text. I mean, there's no specific URL field, so we can just select text in this case. And the placeholder, I mean, if you're selling this, put your own website on there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say seancool.com. And yes, this is a required field. Now, anything else in terms of like when the form is submitted, you can actually put some properties in here and say, when the form is submitted, I want to respond with not just your response has been recorded. Thank you. We are starting the crawl of your website. And that's it. So now we have our initial checkout. Oh, I see we have our first viewer here on LinkedIn. Thank you. Hey, is it Eli? Is it Ellie? I don't know. Can you All right, so let's go. How many viewers do we have? We have 1 viewer, people. Amazing. So let's move on. On form submission. The next thing that you want to do actually is, like I said, I'm not going to take you through all the rough and tough about how Firecrawl works, but essentially they have a few tools that are interesting. The first one that we're going to be needing is the map tool, the map endpoint. Now, what does the map endpoint do? It actually input a website and get all the URLs on the website extremely fast. So how does this work? You fill in a URL. It then, I believe, takes a look at your sitemap on the website, and it will come back with all the URLs that are relevant inside of it. So we're just going to use this right now. Now, if you want to get this set up, obviously log in, create an account, register, and just go to API keys. Create a new API. I already have mine, so I can just copy the one I have here. Go to your n8n, open up your setup, go to your credentials, and on the top right, you can say create credential. Now, the important thing here in terms of credentials, and I won't explain a lot of this, but you have to make sure this is a bearer auth, which is simple HTTP authentication. So we click on continue and we fill in the token here. So this is the token that we just got from Firecrawl. And domains allowed to request, you can keep that. You could add a specific domain if you want to really avoid any tampering, but just stick this to all. I think we're safe here. You click save. Now I already have mine, so I'm going to keep this here. And just to be clear, put a title in. So I'm naming mine Firecrawl. Let's call it bearer auth. So it's absolutely clear this is the Firecrawl auth. Let's save this. And now we're good to go. So if we go back to our workflow, where we have our on-form submission, now what we need to do is obviously get all of those URLs, because how can I identify how can I scrape this website if I don't know which pages to scrape, right? So what we're going to do is come back and we're going to set up a HTTP request. Now, this HTTP request, we're going to call this the Firecrawl map. Let's call it /map. Why? It's simple, it's easy. This way you remember how to call your node. Okay, so we go to our data. Now we see our map endpoint. And what do we need? We need to actually have a playground. No, never mind. We can just stay here. So we go to our map endpoint. Where are my API reference? Yeah. So you're going to be needing the API reference if you're building this absolutely from scratch. Luckily, I'll provide you all of everything that you see here. So you get the n8n documentation, everything's available. Here, we just go to the map endpoint and we see what we need. Now, the most important things is we need a URL and we can say sitemap. And sitemap can be only or, and like I said, right, it scrapes the website. So what we do is we can say include, means use the sitemap, but also find other pages. You can say skip, ignore the sitemap completely. So it just goes on the website and tries to find as many pages as possible. Or only return sitemap URLs. Now, if you know one thing about SEO, people use a sitemap to dictate what content they want to have found. So if you don't want to have anything proprietary show up in your chats, make sure you use the sitemap only method. And that's the one we're going to use. So going from here, we can see that the method is get. Now, if we look at our documentation, put the tab next to it, we see that we need to create a post request, right? So we're going to create a post here. Now, post and get usually is just to get some information, and post is to post to send some information. In this case, we are sending the URL and whether it's a sitemap or not. So let's take the oh yeah, here's my documentation. Let's clear up some of these tabs. Now we know that we need to add the URL and we know to add the sitemap. So let's add our first parameter. Oh, let's copy the URL here also. Boom. We're going to post this to our Firecrawl API map. Now, like I said, we have a bearer auth. For this case, you can choose generic credential type. You select bearer, and the great thing about n8n is it automatically chooses the one you have. Now, because I didn't refresh this page, it's still showing a bearer auth. So let me quickly just save, reload. And as you can see, it's now called Firecrawl bearer auth. The way we send this data over is in the body. Now, it might sound difficult, but you just have to press this parameter, this thing that says send body. And from here, your next step is going to be to send it as JSON, which is normally the way to do this. And then we need to add some parameters. Now, the first parameter we know was URL, right? Okay, so we have URL. The next one is sitemap. Now, sitemap was a very simple one because it's only. With the URL, we need to make sure that we get the data that we just got submitted, right? So let's go back. Let's go back. And let's submit our form. I'm just going to do this quickly off camera. Well, you know what? Let's get this. We're doing it one by one. So let's take it step by step. We're going to take Banner Peak Health. I like that website. So let's take bannerpeakhealth.com. We're going to submit this. And now we can already see, and something went wrong. So let's take a look here. We can see that bad request, please check your parameters. Now, obviously my URL is still empty because it didn't have anything. But the great thing now is I can take my URL, drop it in here, execute the step, and now it's going to fetch everything. And we can see it was successful. And here we have all the URLs on this website. Now, as you can see, it's even just this little doctor's website already has 163 URLs. So you have to be careful finding or identifying which URLs you actually want to keep and you want to have. Now, in our workflow, what we've done is we've added a filter. So at some point, we're going to be setting a filter to make sure that we filter through these pages and only take a few of them. But right now, what's super important to get is to get this information. As we can see, we have success, we have links, and all of our workflow right now depends on the links. So what we need to do is break out the links from the data that we get back. So the feature that we need for this is split out, because as we saw, we have success and we have links. So what we're going to be doing on our side is making sure that we are setting links as the field to split out, and we don't want to include any other fields. Now let's take a look at what happens here. Boom. And now we can see we have 17 pages of links, but they're just the links. We don't have any other parameters, and now we can start working with these items. I'm going to pin this result set, because otherwise we're going to have to execute the workflow all the time. It's always good to pin your data in the point where you feel like you're comfortable working with it. And the next step is just simply going into making sure that with these links, right, we need to have a we need to set them in a data set, because the most important thing is now that we have these links, we need to now format them for the next request that we're going to be doing with Firecrawl, because we actually need to fetch all of them separately. So let's take a quick look here. Now, the one thing I'm going to do already here as a quick filter is, because we have all of these URLs, right? Let's filter out some stuff. Now, what don't we need? If the URL, so again, like I said, right, we have 160 something URLs. We want to make sure not all of them go into the LLM, because that's going to be such a big data set. We want to filter things down. So let's just go back. Let's look at the URLs that we have. Now, what I might not need is, for example, my blog, my privacy policy. There's some things that are in there. Now, the difficulty with this website is there's no real way of distinguishing the blogs. So what we can do is distinguish media, for example, right? Let's say we don't want to have any media. We can say this is a WordPress website. Usually WordPress websites say if it's in WP content, so if it does not contain WP content, I want to have it go through. Now, and well, we're filtering. So I mean, if it contains, here's what I need. Another one could be, let's take the same variable URL, and maybe there's images in there. So what if it's in a gallery, right? WP content, gallery, these are similar types of things that you kind of want to filter out. I know this website by heart, so I'm pretty sure we're not going to get anything out of this. We have 0 items discarded, 164 kept. But what if I gave it just a real example that we know is going to not be taken into consideration? So if I say it contains privacy, because it's the privacy policy, we can now see, oh, okay, that's funny. So we do have a privacy policy, I believe. Okay, we have our blog. Let's execute step. And I think here, I know what's wrong. I think we need to do what does not contain here. So let's just quickly test this out. We're going to just delete this one. Yeah, see, now we're keeping this. So if it doesn't contain, so if it contains blog, now we are keeping that out. And I know what's wrong. It's an or. So if it's not blog or so yeah, now we can do and, I believe, and the contains. Let's say we also want to filter out, for some reason, we'd like to filter out the about. And we can do an or, execute, boom. So now it's filtering out the about, it's filtering out blog, about outperform, what do studios about. So it's now filtering everything with the keyword blog or the keyword about. Now I don't need to filter out keyword about, so I'm going to change that to WP content again. And I'm now going to also add a gallery. Now let's see how much this saves us. Now it's only one item saved, so it's not that much, but it's something. Now this is way too much to scrape, because if you do this right now, it's so you're going to have to find a way to filter this down, right? Whether that is utilizing a like filtering out the specific keywords or filtering out the what's it called, the the URLs, or prefixing certain things, or just limiting yourself to not the sitemap, but a specific set of URLs. Moving on from here, now that we've filtered things, what I want to do, and this is a quick thing, is I'm going to write some code. And the reason why I write this code is because I simply don't want to have all of this result back. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to return my input, take all, and I'm going to slice it. And what I'm going to do is just get me the first 4 results back. Execute this. And now out of all of those URLs, let me see my filter. Okay, we keep those, so does not contain. Oh, this stuff is really messing with me. It's got to be the camera. Let's see. Yeah, okay. No. Bruh. A major fail here. Okay, so now we are discarding all of them because we have this. Where contains is blog. Okay. So if it contains blog, I'm just going to do it like this. See, then we're keeping it. So I want to have does not contain. Execute. We get them all. Now we add or. It does not contain about. And I should just have the ones that are left, right? Okay, so now see. Okay, what if I do and now then? 158. So now it works. We need to do and. So here I can now move, I can add WP content and it still works. Okay, perfect. We have mission success. Does not contain gallery. Well, aren't you happy you don't have to build this in front of one viewer? All right, now let's run our code again. And here we'll see that we are just getting 4 pages back, right? So we get the about us, we get one doctor, we get an outperform, and we get something else in here. Now it's unfortunate that we don't get the homepage, but we're going to have to do this with what we have. Okay, so now that we have built our trigger, we have built our Firecrawl getting information, we can now go and fetch this information from Firecrawl. So we're going to do another HTTP request. And the reason for this one is to scrape. So we're going to have to scrape all of these pages. So how do we do this? Again, we go to Firecrawl and we have to create a request to scrape, which is post. And then we need to send some information over. Now I'm going to keep it very simple for you because we don't need to use a lot of these parameters that they have here. We're just going to use a few of them. So first things first, we're going to set the method to post. We are going to set our URL, our authentication. Again, remember, bearer type, right? So bearer auth, it selects our Firecrawl and we send our body, just like we did before. Now, the important thing here is that we're going to have to look at sending some. So what if you have to have a blog pages? We just changed the, yeah. Question from the chat. Let's answer this. If we go back to our filter here, we can actually see that if we do want to have the blog, we just remove the blog here. So if we just delete this, for example, now execute this, it will keep all of the URLs. Now I know they have a specific, like this thank you page, right? So let's say we want to remove these thank you pages from there because I'm pretty certain they're not going to have any value. We can add them in here and just set the word thank, does not contain, execute, and now we discarded 2 thank you pages, the contact page and for some reason a Dr. Katz more information page. And this way you can keep on filtering pages based on keywords. But this is kind of the way you do this. So back to our request. As I mentioned, we're going to scrape. We have our method at post. We have our URL set. We have our credential set. We have our body. Now, here comes a little bit of a tricky situation because what n8n doesn't allow for is sub parameters. So I'm going to just do this quickly. I can actually, instead of using fields like setting the URL and then adding having some URL stuff in here, I can actually write some real JSON in here. So I have this snippet prepared. Just going to close this for a second. We're going to also execute this again. And we can pin this information. And now that we have this, if I execute it right now, I expect us to have an error because we're requesting 4 pages at the same time. And Firecrawl isn't going to be happy if we crawl everything at once, usually. Maybe they'll let us do this at 4. But we're going to have to wait and see. While this is working, let's just go to our dashboard, because the beautiful thing about this is in your dashboard, and you go to your activity logs, you can actually see the scrapes that it's doing. So it did the about us, the ID cuts, outperform, and also this one. So it should be nearing readiness and giving us all the information back. And if it doesn't, we'll just run it again. In the meantime, what I can say is the option that you'd like to use would be to add a timeout. So, or sorry, not timeout, but to add batching. So batching means we have multiple of these URLs, right? In this case, there's 162, but we made it into 4. I would like to do 1 URL per batch, and I'd like to wait 2 seconds in between. That means every request is going to run 8 seconds instead of having to going every time, because Firecrawl is going to tell you, hey, listen, you're doing a lot and we're not happy with this. Since this keeps on going, what I'm going to do right now is just quickly, I've saved my progress. I'm just going to refresh and let's see if it works. If we do this again, we're going to keep our interval, execute this step. Let's find out what happens. And now would have been the time to actually answer questions. Execute this node to view data or set mock data. Well, I did it. You can view the raw request and it's not. Okay, so we get everything in here. But for some reason, we are not. Oh, wait, I got to fill in my my URL. It's popping it up for me. I got to fill it in again. Benepik held submit. So we get all the information. And now let's see what's happening with the execution of this node. Let's also pin this data. So we can see our request is fully done. Now, as mentioned, we took every page. So what do we see here? We see the first page. Then we see, if we scroll down, we see another page. So this one is the Our Physicians page about ID cuts. So the first one would have been the About Us, then it's ID cuts. I remember reading something about outperform. So I would imagine this to be something, yeah, outperform. And then the last page, I don't really remember what that was about, but we have feeling your body, peak performance, something, something, something. Now, important to note is that I added 2 things here. I added Markdown and I added summary. So if we look at the Markdown, this is the start of the Markdown of the page. And as you can see, it's very long. So it ends a little bit above here. It ends here. This is a lot of information to send to an LLM, but if you have the capacity, you should do it. However, if you're doing a lot of pages, just like this one, right, with the 164, you might be better off taking the summaries of each page and then putting that into your database and working off of that. So now that we have our data, we have it requested. The next thing that we need to do is we need to start putting this into our LLM, right? We need to make sure that we get all of this information and get this sent to our LLM. But before we do that, we kind of have to merge all of this data together. For this, we use an aggregate. Now, what do we need to aggregate? We need to aggregate our Markdown. So we're going to aggregate individual fields. The input field is data.markdown because that's what we're getting in here. And I believe the only thing that we could do potentially is rename this field. So the output field is content, makes it easy enough for us to remember. Just map it to something that's easy for you to use. And then we execute this step. And we can see here now that we have one big data set of content. and all of them are in here. All right. Let's pin our response. I love to pin because that way you know you don't have to get it back again. So now the next thing is, and this is going to be a tricky one, but you're going to have to use a model called of an item called basic LLM chain. The basic LLM chain is the core part of n8n's LLM stuff. This actually allows you to talk to an agent without having user input. You can kind of send the message yourself. So normally, like you can see your chat input, right? It's from a user's message. In this case, we're going to change this to define below. And in this case, it means that we can really set our own information. Obviously, I have my prompt ready before, so I'm going to take this in here. And you can see that we have our role, just like we did in the intro. And you can see this variable, content. Remember that we had the content variable that we put in the previous node. That now is available for us here. And in this, we can see all the content for all of the pages that it has. So imagine if you did this for 164 pages, you would not have enough tokens, right? Even Gemini, I think, well, maybe Gemini could do a book, right? 1 million or 2 million context window. Yeah, you could get away with that. So make sure you use the right model to provide you with the right information for these types of situations, right? So in this case, we're using GPT-5, which I believe has a context window of 128,000. But for us right now, it's enough. So let's execute the step. Okay, see, a model subnode must be connected because while this is a way to talk to ChatGPT, you have to make sure you let it speak to a model. So in this case, we're going to use OpenAI chat model, and and it's great because even if I just delete this and I want to connect it to something, I see here that I have to connect it to the model, right? So I click on this little plus for the model, and it's going to suggest you already all of these models. So you don't really have to do a lot of science to figure out what's what. Now I use OpenAI. You can use another one. I'm a big fan of Grok, big fan of Gemini as well. But in this case, credentials already there. We're going to use OpenAI. So let's use our OpenAI model. It's for these types of one-off things that are expensive in terms of tokens and stuff, but you want to get things right. I'm not a big fan of utilizing too many of these smaller models. You can, but I would, for the sake of this, because you want to deliver quality at the end to your customer, to the person who's chatting towards it, I would really use just GPT-5. Just use the latest foundation model. It's going to cost you maybe double, but it really depends on the data that you put in, right? If you did your filtering right and you know how to get there, you will be okay in terms of this pricing. And I believe that's everything that we need to configure because there's really no options. So we're just going to go from here. And let's run this again. And let's see what happens with our model subnode or warning. Now, this all is being sent to ChatGPT. So it means it's going to take a little bit of time for it to process everything, but then also to get back. So this is going to be important. Okay, well, it's taking its time. Let's have a quick look. Oh yeah, one thing I forgot to say is credentials to connect with. In this case, it should be the OpenAI account. And I forgot to mention this, but you need to make sure obviously you have credentials. We didn't set up our credentials, but it's very simple. Just set up your credentials just like we did with the bearer auth, but then you just select OpenAI. Okay, we are kind of locked. So what we're going to do is pause this for now. Just hit refresh. Let's hit save first. These are things that will happen. When you start building with n8n, you'll figure out soon enough that there are some things that will kind of make a break. And sometimes you just have to hit a refresh, see what happens. So let's figure out, it's not executing our previous nodes. I believe we still have to fill in, again, the URL. Okay, it is fetching all the pages. We need to pin this. It's going to be so much easier to pin because now again we have to wait these 8 seconds for all these pages to be done. And I know all my viewers have been waiting for so many minutes already. So thank you. Yeah, a fun fact, Gemini 3.0 should be coming out next week. And it should blow everybody away. So I'm curious to see what it's going to bring. In the meantime, for these types of things, again, just go to your logs, see if see it completed everything again. And now we're like, well, why are you still grinding? That makes no sense. So again here, well, we're going to wait 10 seconds, but after that, we're just going to hit refresh. And unfortunately, we're going to have to try things again. It is what it is. Or everything here was pinned, so this is fine. Yep, we're going to refresh. And people, this is how it is when you do live debugging or live development. It's not always as pretty. The edited video will look great because it'll be like, everything goes wonderful. You press a button and it's great. But no. In reality, this is what happens. Okay, well, Firecrawl is not happy with us because it's running for 35 seconds and the request should take about 8 seconds. We're going to go again to the logs, 9:55, 9:56, everything again completed. So remember, this is not always the easiest and the best thing to go with or to work with, but we're going to have to deal with what we have. And you're really also dependent here on the servers that they have. If they have the capacity to do something and to get you something back, it's sometimes it's just hell. All right, let's just run this bad boy one more time. Oops. Okay, well, that's good. I was making some accidental changes, so let's put that back. Okay, we have our data. Now, we're going to pin this because I don't want to wait on this again. Now, we have our aggregate also done. And now we are going to, okay, you know what? You want to go Twitch? Let's do Twitch, baby. And we're live on Twitch also. Okay. Next time we'll do Facebook as well, for sure. We need to set up our Facebook, but Twitch, I believe we can do Twitch. And I believe on Twitch we are in Facebook as well. Ooh. Thank you for the echo. Okay, we're live and just chatting. I think that's wrong. We need to change that to, it's got to be a software channel, right? Software and game development. Perfect. Done. Refresh. Software and game development. Yep, we're live in Twitch, software and game development. For those, for the 1,000 of viewers on Twitch that didn't get to see the beginning, at least they get to see the end. Annoying about n8n going through every step over. Well, yes and no. If you pin everything the right way, then at least it doesn't have to work again. So pinning means if you pin this data, it remembers it. So if you do the workflow again, you don't have to run through it again. And this is super interesting. If you have an HTTP request that can, take, I don't know, 50 seconds when it wants to, even though it should only be 8, then it's good to pin this data that you get back. So yeah, 100% a smart choice. Now, let's get the big guns out. Come on, OpenAI. We should have everything ready here. So let's wait and see what happens. Now we've got one viewer on Twitch. We got 2 viewers. We got 2 viewers. Probably the same person, man. Oh, that's me, by the way, on Twitch. I forgot because I have it open. Okay, well, the internet gods are with me today. Everybody wants to let me wait. All right, let's figure this out. You know what we're gonna do? Because I feel like this model is not modeling, so we're gonna change it. But let's just cancel this first and foremost, and then then we do. And here's the problem, right? We get some output out of here, but okay, let's go to our GPT-5. We're gonna change it to something faster, and we're just gonna edit out the fact that I said to use GPT-5. We're just gonna edit that out. So much more easier. All right. Okay, so we have another viewer, a young guy from Montenegro. All right, let's find out. We're gonna execute this. Okay, we have our data. So now we go to one of our final steps before we actually get to chatting, and that is to save this data. Now, as we all remember, if we go to our automation templates project, we can, let's save this. That's fine. We have our data tables. Now, in the past, people used to rely heavily on Google Sheets to store and save things, or Supabase for offloading data. Nowadays, you can build your data tables, your databases in n8n. So let's make a new data table. And this one we're going to call our customer support. We already have one, so we're just going to, let's call this customer support agent v2 and then create. So we have our data table. Now, as we know, we need to store a few things about this, right? So we're going to add the columns that we need. The first one is going to be the domain, which is going to be of type string. Now, if you don't know what it is, a string is text, a number is a number, a boolean is true or false, which you're going to use as well, and a datetime is a time and a date. So let's add this column. We're going to add another column, which is for the content, which is also a string, right? Remember, this is going to be the error adding column. Okay, well, let's refresh. See, this is what I mean. By the way, recent feature. This is not new. This is not out too many and installations. Data tables. So be careful using it at your own risk. But I pretty feel like it's stable enough right now. So yeah, I think we're good to go. And the last thing that we need is an active column. And again, like I said, Boolean, right? So we're gonna add this column, and that's the one that we can toggle on and off. So we have domain, content, and active. What else do we need? Okay, we've got this in check. The next thing is going to our workflow. We need to save the data that we have here. I'm just going to pin this data again, like so many pins, but you see the risks when you are actually developing. This is how it is in the gutters, people. This is what real development is like. So we're going to save this to a data table. So we're going to create a row, and there is delete rows, get rows, if row exists. If row doesn't exist, insert row. And what we need is if row exists, or sorry, if row does not exist. Because what we want to do, if the row does not exist, right, we want to then create it. But if it exists, oh, and wait, I have a question. Oh, cool. We got a shout out from Liam. Liam, thank you very much, man. Dashboard Lim in the house. All right, so we're going to select our data table, but the one that we actually needed, and I'm going to show this to you again. If we go data table, right, and you select this, you see, it's still there. Sorry, Upsert row. I kind of missed it. So what we're going to do is change this data. Let's just delete this one. Let's just make it simple, because I don't want to have you go through all of this stuff. And so what we're going to do is we're going to store this into our data table. And to store this, what we need is Upsert. What is a data table? Well, what is Upsert? Upsert means update it or insert it, right? So if it exists, update it. If it doesn't exist, insert it. So that's why we're using Upsert. And it says as well, update rows or insert if there's no match. Now we're going to take our V2 data table and we're going to match on a condition, right? It's important to know what we're focusing on. And in this case, we're going to focus on our domain. So if we tie this in together, we can see that we can see our information on the left side, and our domain is filled in on the form submission. So we can take our URL, put the value in. As we can see, this is red, most likely because it's not available to us at this moment. So we're going to have to run the execution again at some point. Let's take a quick peek here. Yeah, we're safe to do this. So once we've done this, we now need to upsert the information, right? So we need to set our domain and we need to set our content. Now the content we just got back from our LLM chain, so we can use the text that we received from the LLM. And when it comes to our domain, again, we can use the same value here, right? We can either copy paste this, or we can take the value that we have here. And we can remove active because it's not needed to do that. And that's it. Based on this information, if we were to execute this, I mean, we're getting an error on the form submission, so executing it now would give us something wrong because it doesn't work with method pinned in this data. Please unpin aggregate and try again. So what I'm going to try right now is just execute this workflow from start to finish, just to see if now it takes the data. And unfortunately, it doesn't. So using the item method does not work with pin date in this scenario. Please undate aggregate. So, all right. The problem is that our aggregate is well, a lot of stuff is messing things up, but let's change this. Does this now work then? Yeah, see, it's basically telling us we need to unpin everything from the start flow. But because we know our stuff is working, we can now safely unpin. And unfortunately, this is what life is also. You're going to have to unpin things. And you're going to have to wait for things to actually work. So do we have anything else pinned? We have this pinned. We can remove that. So Upsert. We have our data table that's still empty. Okay. Now we're just going to run this. So execute workflow. As we know, we're going to have to fill in our URL. Submit. Stop glazing, Eiley. But yeah, love it. We got viewers, baby. Okay, so we're going to go through everything. We just got the map, right? Oh, something went wrong here. Success, we have an empty array. Did we use up all of our credits? No, we didn't. So what happened here? Let's execute this. Again. So we are fetching this bearer auth, Firecrawl auth, JSON, the URL is there. We are setting the URL correctly here. Sitemap only. Interesting. This is extremely strange. Okay, I see the issue. We have an issue in our form. So let's fill in the right URL. Okay, boom, we're good. Banner peak health. What's up with that? Okay, wait, execute form. Ah, another typo. Okay, so now we're good. Okay, we're getting a request. Let's see what we have here. Okay, this is still the only execution. There's nothing else running. So that should be fine. Oh, cool. We can actually look at this, people. We can highlight people. All right. Well, as we know, but the problem is we have to sit through this. That's the problem with n8n. That's the problem with third-party vendors. And this is why sometimes it's good to have a specialist and also a lot of time. So don't do this stuff if you're ready to get a drink or dinner. Do it when you have the time. Luckily, I have the time. All right. So what we're going to do right now is we're just going to stop the workflow execution. Let's make sure that is ended. And we're going to just quickly save, refresh, and let's just execute this again. bannerpeakhealth.com, submit. Okay, we get everything nicely in there. Now let's hope this works as amazingly as it should be. So tired of this. Well, this is where I have to entertain my viewers. Ain't nothing happening here. Okay, this is quite interesting. Okay, we keep on having the same issue. We're going to try this again. Because the funny thing is that if I go to my logs, I can see legit right now, it's my 10 to 13, and it ran, right? It's completed. We see the map, we see the scrapes. It just did another map right now, right? If I refresh, we're going to see the new scrapes again. So these are already, again, because this was the map that we just saw. So there's 2 pages that have been scraped now. We can see there's a 3rd page being scraped, a 4th page being scraped. Wow, these are actually pretty sucky pages to do this experiment with, but we're gonna do it. See, but still, we get the situation that's not working. Hi. So what I'm gonna do is just quickly do this test in my separate workflow. So let's take this one. This is the one that we built before. We're gonna do an execution, and in this case, I'm gonna just take a different website. Remember that, what was it, 11 Madison Park? I'm gonna fill that one in here. Submit. It's going through things. It's fetching the pages. In the meantime, let me just stop this one. Okay, so here we're fetching the information. Let's see if this one is equally. Yeah, see, we're getting .com, the FAQ, we're getting our restaurant. So we are fetching the right pages here. And now we're in the LLM chain. So, okay, now we're going to do the same thing with this one. Submit. Let's see what happens if we get our HTTP request through. For some reason, the Banner Peak website is not really feeding Firecrawl. Most likely what's happening here is that we do have that website hosted on it's a client of ours. So we have it hosted on a website that it has bot protection. So there is a chance that the website's being blocked by the Firecrawl's being blocked by bots. However, it is strange that they tell me it's completed here, but they don't give it back. So this, I think, is more or less a Firecrawl issue than anything else. And this is where you, as an automator, have to believe you did the right thing, because we saw this work. You and me both saw this work, so it has to work. Something is just not. It's not us. It's n8n. Trust me, it's not us. It's Firecrawl. Just believe in it. Believe it, and it will be all right. That's the that's the only thing I can say. Horrible. You know what we'll do? For the sake of argument and for everything right now, we're just going to copy over our information to our data table. So we're going to create a new one with the domain banner peak health. Actually, let's keep that one for later. We're going to do one with 11 Medicine Park, because I've prepared this information so we can utilize our data set there, right? So we're going to just use 11 Madison Park, put the content in, and we're going to make this one active. All right, good to go. Now, I'm just going to let this run. Let's see what happens. However long it takes, we're just going to wait for this right now. And if it happens, it happens. So what's important to do is we need to start chatting to our data, obviously, right? So the one thing that we have for this is we have a chat trigger. So we take the chat. We don't have to do anything. You could make it publicly available. You get a URL, you put it in, and then it becomes a webhook. So it's not accessible like this, but it becomes a webhook that you can then actually talk to. And I don't know if n8n has embedded chat that you can actually embed it, but there's instructions to embed so there's a possibility to do this, right? To get a chat in there, which is amazing if you want to do this on your website. Now, super important, while we do have a chat input here, we can actually ask you questions. Now, nothing's going to happen because there's no LLM or anything attached to it. Here's a quick thing. You can actually, if you have your WhatsApp connected, you could set this up that when you receive a WhatsApp message, also, what we're building right now can work with WhatsApp. Just saying that. Now, we're going to connect this to an AI agent. Well, let's just navigate to AI. We're going to do AI agent. And in this case, the source for the prompt is going to be the connected chat trigger node, which we know we have. So this is already amazing. Now, what are the things that we need to do? We have the JSON chat input here. And the only thing we need to do is add an option for the system message. Now, the system message I have prepared. And we're basically saying you are a helpful assistant. Please answer any and all questions. And we're going to tell it to always use the data table tool. I even tell it, if you don't, we will shut you down. And also important to talk in a we form. Now, you tell the LLM this, that you're going to shut it down, because otherwise sometimes it will just not listen. So make sure, if there's actually like legit things where if you threaten LLM, it'll work better. But let's do it like this. Now, what's important to know is that we have already our chat model, right? So we connect our chat model that we have there. We add our simple memory. Now, simple memory contains a memory of, in this case, 5, where the last 5 messages that the user has spoken about is something where it will be remembered. So the simple memory takes a step-by-step backlog of all a log of all the conversations that happened for each different user. So if you have 10 people talking to your bot, it will have 50 conversations or 50 messages it will store. So it has the memory for the individual person. It will have 5 messages available for it. This way it can talk to and just remember things you asked. And if you want to have that context window longer, change it to 20. I would say in production environments, definitely change it to 20. But for now, we're not going to ask that many, so we can just do 5. All right. The next thing is we need a tool, because we need to fetch our data from our data table. So n8n has the data table tool. We filled it in here. What we're going to do, the tool description. I actually have a tool description ready for it, because I feel like writing it yourself is just easier. So, because now it says like insert row into data table. Well, what we are going to do is we're going to do get. So it changes get rows in data table. We're going to say always use this tool anytime you need to answer a question, because it always use this data table tool anytime you need to get any answers, right? So now row is resource, the operation is get, and then we need to get it from our v2 database. So select your data table as v2, and then from there we need to match it, obviously, because the only one we want to get is, well, when a condition is met, so all conditions are met. And that is when active is true. Because we only want to get the one that's active, right? Let's say you have multiple customers working on this, or you use the same data table. You might want to have a flag, or if you're testing it with a staging website or a production website, you want to switch between the one that you want to be using. So we don't return all, and we set limit to 1. Okay. We save this. I can see our workflow has ended. Let's take a quick peek. The connection was aborted. Perhaps the server is offline. Let's try this again. We have the time. So now that we have this, we have our chat message available. We have our simple memory. The next thing I would like to add is one extra thing, which is, oh, look, our node got executed successfully. We're going to come back to that in a second. So the next thing you want to have besides simple memory is also a tool that we call think. Now, why do you want to have the think tool? The think tool is to use this tool to think about something. It will not obtain any new information. It's just something where the LLM gets told, hey, think about it. You've heard about LLM's reasoning. This will make a non-reasoning model reason, and therefore just rethink and make sure its steps are as accurate as it can be. Okay, we have some questions in here. The live building is giving the real experience of n8n newbie. It's not as easy as it's look. Yeah, yes. Omema, thank you very much for calling that out. It is not the dream that we all think it is, but somebody has to do it and somebody has to teach it. So that's why I'm here, and I'd love to, I'm happy to take people on this journey. And then, all right, people are saying OpenAI killed n8n. That it didn't. It did not. What's interesting is that what we're building here actually can be done with AgentKit from OpenAI. So there's a lot of similarities here. You cannot scrape your data, but you can create a chat agent. And you can have your chat agent also access certain information. But scraping your website, no. All of that stuff you would still have to do with n8n. So I think there's a beautiful connection to be made between n8n and AgentKit, where AgentKit can talk to the data you scrape through n8n. But n8n on its own definitely surpasses capabilities of AgentKit. All right, let's go back to here. We have our HTTP request. We're going to click execute. Now we have our aggregate. Everything is there. We're going to go to our basic LLM chain. Going to click execute here also. Obviously, this will take some time again. Hopefully not 50 seconds, but we should get our answers relatively soon. Just as tired as everybody else of ChatGPT not working. Okay, we go. And now we're going to click Upsert node. So let's click execute step. We see everything is green. Now, if we go to our data table, we can actually see that R hasn't worked. So let's take a look what happened here. So we have our domain, and it must match Upsert any conditions domain equals that. The mapping of each node domain is this. So, oh, wait, we were requesting 11 Madison Park in this. So the URL we did here. So let's delete this one. Well, you would think there would be a simple delete button, right? Oh, here on the bottom. Wow. Okay, delete. Okay, so now we're empty. We're going to run this again, execute step. I'm going to refresh, and boom, we have our domain. And it's not active, so you manually have to activate it. So I now activated it. We can now go back to our workflow. And wouldn't it be great if this worked immediately? So let's try this. Hey, what type of food do you serve? So you can see it's accessing the data table, and we can see we're saying we serve a fine dining experience with a seasonally driven menu that primarily focuses on plants that have hovered since October 14. We have reintroduced selected animals, producing fish. So it's giving you a very in-depth answer, maybe even too in-depth. But the great thing is you can actually go to the system, right? Because we haven't given it any instructions. We said write it in a we form. But what if we tell it to, keep things short or always, let's say we say always ask the next question towards booking a table, because we know this is a restaurant, right? Execute the step. And now we're just going to ask the same question. Oh, we executed it for no reason, but hey, what type of food do you serve? And now it's asking us, would you like to make a reservation? Now, if you think our chat is this is too long, well, let's add another thing, right? Keep it short, polite, and not, don't answer in long paragraphs. And the great thing that I've learned here is talk like a human, because it'll understand. Don't be too specific. I don't know why I keep clicking execute step, but let's try this question again. See, so now it's a little bit more. It's not talking about in October 2023, because that's not relevant, right? We have a fine dining experience. We have we have fish, meat, and even our honey lavender glazed duck, which sounds amazing, right? And they're freshly sourced from magic. This is exactly something every person would want to know. So how can I call you? Like, I could also just ask, what's your phone number? You can simply call me your assistant. Well, I don't. Okay, see, and this is where English gets English. So, what's your phone number? And now, if it has to, okay, we don't have a phone number on the website, so it's not available. But is there anything else we can assist you with? Now, here's the good thing. In the future session, hopefully, what we're going to be doing is we're going to add some extra tools. One of the tools that we can add, for example, is a Google Calendar tool. Now, let's imagine you run your business on Google Calendar. I hope you do it in a different thing, because otherwise it's going to be difficult to match your tables to your to your seating, because you're going to have so many appointments on just 1 hour in Google Calendar. But let's imagine you do, or let's say it's another tool. We can simply connect it through here, and if there's availability for it, I mean, there might even be, there's no open table. And even if there isn't, the good thing is we can always create a request. Like, Firecrawl isn't connected in n8n, and there isn't a node for Firecrawl. There is one, I believe, when you host it yourself, but there isn't one right here. However, oh wait, I think they actually say it here. Don't worry, you can probably do it with the HTTP request node. So that's the thing. If you want to connect your chat to a tool where it can actually book something, where it can actually talk to other people, and Google Calendar isn't the thing, right? If it's just your personal assistant for your website and you do have a shared calendar that you can use, it's fine. If it's towards a restaurant or a hotel, booking rooms and stuff, usually you're going to have to create a HTTP connection to the API, just like we did with Firecrawl. And I think that's why this demo is so important, is we are showing you live how to connect to another API. We're showing you how to consume data, how to send data, and how to then get it all back together. Well, I have been Sean. Thank you very much for the live stream. Assuming there are no other questions, we're going to wrap it up, and I wish you all a very good evening. Bye-bye.